Near the Derbyshire village of Arkwright is one of Europe's most profitable coal mines. Instead of tunnelling through earth to find the precious coal seam, open-cast mining tears away the surface to reveal it. One bite of this 600-ton excavator's shovel lifts 40 tons of rock and earth. 5 bites, and 2 minutes later, the skip of this American-built Caterpillar truck is full. Not having to travel on the public highway means that these mechanical wheelbarrows give a new meaning to the word big.
The bigger the excavator, the bigger the truck, the more efficient it is. It's the economies of scale as it is in so many things. And it's because you need to take vast volumes of waste material away, get the coal, and then bring it back again afterwards to fill the hole up.
Only when a man stands next to this metal monster do its vital statistics become truly apparent.
Well, what we have here is a 789 Caterpillar dump truck, capable of carrying 180 to 200 tons of material at one particular time, with a V16 cylinder engine in, 4 turbocharged, may I add, right, with a 69,000 cc engine. Now, that's really something else. I mean, take, for instance, look at the size of the front grille here. It's like the side of a bungalow, isn't it? I mean, behind there we have tucked in a great big radiator. I mean, gee, look at the tyres. Tyres alone. I mean, they're something else. They weigh 5 tons on the rims. Fuel tank. Now, look at this here, fuel tank. It's like anybody's central heating tank. You know, we've got a truck here that uses 33 gallons of fuel an hour, an 800-gallon fuel tank. So, this is why we need the size of the tank for it to run most of the day. In here, if you like to come in with us. Look at the steering cylinders alone here, size of them. Steering linkages, stub axles, track rod ends, all very large stuff. All very large hydraulic hoses. It's very, very big, this truck. It's very exciting as well. You'll never get fed up of working on them, you know.
It might be exciting working with giant trucks, but it can create giant problems.
Obviously, there are limits in the actual structure and the engineering and that. That's not too big a problem. One big problem is the tyres. The technology of actually making bigger tyres, and actually not just making them, but transporting them. If you make a big tyre, you can't cut it in pieces and carry bits of tyre and stick it together. You can do that with a truck, like a piece of Meccano, but not a tyre. You've got to carry the whole thing.
They're quite expensive. They're in the region of £12,000 onwards. So if you add the 6 together, you've got £70,000 plus of tyres on this truck. So there's quite a responsibility alone in tyres for the driver.
As he could run over a Land Rover without feeling more than a slight bump, the tyres are usually the least of the driver's worries. In fact, handling these million-pound monsters requires surprisingly little effort. With power steering and a 6-speed automatic gearbox, the Cat is as easy to drive as a car. A car that is 25 feet wide, 40 feet long, and 18 feet high. To carry and tip a 180-ton load with such consummate ease, you need some serious hydraulic muscle.
There's a common system on here with the hydraulic rams. You see the size of those? They're like the Queen Elizabeth exhaust stacks. They run up through the brake systems as well. The brake system is common oil to the hoist oil. This is the reason why we've got such a large tank.
In contrast to the colossal earth moving by the dump trucks, the final extraction of the coal is more like digging up the high street. Small excavators and men with brushes and shovels sweep away the last of the mud and rock from the exposed seam, allowing the coal to be dug up.
In theory, you can go bigger, and it's pretty certain that by the end of this century, you will have trucks carrying around 300 tonnes and excavators big enough to load them in 3 passes, i.e. 3 bucketfuls fills a 300-tonne truck. So that's 100 tonnes per bucketful, and then the truck's away.
Trapped by their size, dump trucks rarely leave sight. Dismemberment is their only escape. But even stripped of its skip and wheels, the carcass of this caterpillar weighs 70 tons and so remains in the outsized world of an abnormal load. Today, with Britain's sophisticated motorway network, loads like this have become routine. The type of lorry that hauls the cat is the heaviest version of a road-going juggernaut. But it wasn't always this easy. In the late 50s, Britain was building vast components for heavy industry. To get them from the factory to the building site, powerful lorries like these Scammell 80-tonners slogged huge trailers along trunk roads.
The work of dozens of men and months of planning lie behind this strange journey. It is almost a year since monthly meetings started to discuss the multitude of details which must be dealt with. And up to the last minute, an air of dramatic uncertainty persisted.
In January 1957, this 130-foot stainless steel tower for ICI was the longest load ever to go by road. It took 3 days to travel 18 miles.
Even policemen are dwarfed to Lilliputian dimensions as the steady crawl goes on through the houses of Middlesbrough. To these men, strange loads, great responsibility and weather of all kinds are just part of the job. Bob Watson of Glasgow has just been moving 200-ton atomic power units at Calder Hall. Wet or fine, light or dark, the lumbering progress must go on until the appointed place is reached.
The relics of this epic era in heavy haulage now lie in a field in Northamptonshire.
I've always had a love affair with these Scammells. We got a bit excited at the beginning, I suppose, and put the cart before the horse, so to speak, and instead of buying one, restoring it and having an ongoing situation, we rushed off out and we now own about 30 of them, I think. Not all for preservation, lots of them are for donor vehicles. If you find a rusting old chassis somewhere for a few quid, then you buy it, put it up the corner, and hopefully you can scavenge from that to keep some of the others going. This Scammell here is a super constructor. It was built about 1950, I would imagine. We haven't got a specific date for it. It started off life in the military as a tank transporter. After that, it went into private hands. When these lorries were on the road, they had dealt with the best that there were. In fact, if anything, they were vastly over-engineered. And that made them a very durable machine. The technology, I suppose, was top hole for the day.
This 190-ton transformer was top hole technology too. The power industry promised to meet the demand for cheap electricity through the economies of scale gained by using massive electrical components. Heavy hauliers like Pickfords met this challenge by using sophisticated new types of multi-axle trailer. To haul it to Clydesmill for Scottish Electricity took 3 of Scammell's finest prime movers, the 6-wheel drive Super Constructor.
When you change gear, you can change gear when that gearbox is ready to let you change gear. So your whole being has to slow down. You can't hurry the old girl. I mean, flat out she'll only do 27 miles an hour, and it's great. Very therapeutic, I think. I don't wave a big Union Jack, but I do like things that are British, and Scammell in particular. Unfortunately, they went the way of most British industries, and they just sat back and said, we are the best, and you take us or you leave us. And unfortunately, most people started to leave them.
Every day your needs grow. You want more from a car. More safety. More space. More individuality. One car gives you all this and more. Fiat Punto, the answer.
She's for sale, isn't she?
Yeah.
And how much are you asking for?
15,000.
This pub in Newport, South Wales, is the monthly meeting place for a group of heavy haulage veterans. They all worked for Wynns, who started in transport in 1863 with a cart and 2 horses.
Castle Bromwich. Right. Brownhills. Stafford.
People are always impressed by a big load passing in the streets, and I think it gave the drivers a little bit of, well, you know, we're better than the ordinary construction in use vehicles.
Easy to use this, he runs about.
These ex-Wynns men are watching the home movies of former director John Wynn.
We were able to allow the manufacturers to build as big as they could, because we were able to say, yes, you can move it. Sometimes you think to yourself, well, I wish I hadn't said that they could move it, but that was part of the game.
Wynns had a motto, if it's loose at both ends, we will move it. And that lasted for over 100 years. There was never a problem with moving anything for anybody, as long as they were prepared to pay for it. That was the... And Wynns, all the Wynns men accepted a challenge. They loved the challenge.
The challenge for a Wynns man came in matching the management's enthusiasm for taking on any job. By shifting the apparently impossible, the drivers truly became kings of the road. In the pre-motorway age, getting these spectacular loads through narrow streets and along country lanes took a phenomenal amount of judgment and skill. The art lay in the teamwork between the drivers at the front and the steersman at the back.
When you're a back tractor driver, you're basically a motorised bogie. You're fixed to the back of the trailer. You have no part to play in the steering of your tractor or the trailer, other than in difficult circumstances. You have to start at the back, and you have to understand the back, so that when eventually you do become a front tractor driver, you know exactly what the man at the back has to do, and you have to make allowances as regards. You can't go 10 down a road at 20 miles an hour expecting him to steer the back bogie at 5 miles an hour. You have to drop your speed, correspond, and make all the allowances for him to manoeuvre that back bogie.
This is one of the many Diamond T's owned by Wynns. They came to Britain with the American Army to transport their tanks and never went home. The Diamond T's power and its simple construction held great appeal for entrepreneurs like the Wynns.
Can you drive a Diamond T? So I said, well, I expect so. What did it look like? And he took me around the corner of the yard, and there was this colossal vehicle, left-hand drive, I don't know how many gear levers. And he said, what about it? I said, well, yeah, they're all the same, I expect so. So he told me what he thought of me in no uncertain terms, saying that he had men that had worked for him for 25 years would give their right arm for the opportunity of driving such a vehicle. It was a superb vehicle, grossly underrated, and Wynns really got their money out of them.
The purchase of war surplus Diamond T's was the inspiration of John Wynn's Uncle Perce, or HP as he was known.
Apparently HP had been driving up from Cardiff and following a convoy of tank transporters, American Diamond T's. And one of them had to brake, the one that he was following had to brake hard. And there it was, 8 black lines on the road, which is absolutely inconceivable for HP, who had been in transport all his life, to see these brakes, because we did not know what brakes were. And that sort of set his mind to thinking, well, after the war we'll have to get all of these, and we did. We eventually landed up with about 30 Diamond Ts, plus the Pacifics, which was the mainstay of our heavy haulage fleet. We had 6 of those, which HP again bought at the right price from a field in Kent, 6 out of 100. The other 94 were cut up, unfortunately, for scrap.
At a time when the equivalent Scammell cost around £6,000, the Pacifics at £120 a time were clearly a bargain.
Well, the Pacific, it wasn't so much enjoying the Pacific. You were somebody to drive a Pacific. It was like driving a house. They were, I think they were about 15 feet wide, about 15 feet high. The engine ran alongside you at shoulder height, the full length of the cab, and you sat in a small seat with 2 windows that were like shop windows. So all day long you had the sun beating in, you had the heat from this terrible engine, you couldn't smoke, you could hardly breathe, you had one little window on the side that opened, you were stripped to the waist, and the sweat poured down your face, through your eyebrows, off your chin, dripped on your chest and ran down your belly. No, they weren't nice to drive when they were really working. But it was, you did have a sense of achievement in being allowed to drive a Pacific. They were a fantastic tractor.
The success of civilian heavy haulage could never have happened without the development of equipment for the army. In the old days, military equipment was always built up to a standard and never down to a cost. The Scammell Explorer, with its hugely articulating suspension and distinctive coffee pot radiator, was the pinnacle of Scammell's achievement in building an all-terrain vehicle. Its 6-wheel drive and off-road capabilities made it ideal for hauling heavy military hardware, anywhere. Tanks need a special kind of transport.
The A vehicles, that's the tanks, the track vehicles such as Warrior, the heavy guns, require to arrive at the battle area in the best possible condition. They're designed to maneuver quickly around and tactically around the battlefield area, such as the tanks moving into fire positions. And they're not designed to drive for long distances on the roads for sort of hundreds of miles. That's where the tank transporters come in, to provide strategic mobility for the tanks.
One of Scammell's greatest rivals was the Hampshire-based company of Thornycroft.
It's a 1954 Thornycroft Antar, built in Basingstoke. The word Antar, we believe, is named after a warrior. The actual engine is a Meteorite 8-cylinder engine, developing 285 horsepower at a maximum 2,000 revs per minute. Obviously, not all tanks that load onto the trailer are going to run. Some, for some reason, have either been battle damaged or the engines have gone, whatever. So this incorporates a winch, a straight pull. Well, it's 50 ton, but a 2-to-1 is 100 ton, which is more than enough for bringing tanks onto this trailer, what it's designed for. The trailer itself is 1954, same as the Antar. It's a 50-ton Dyson trailer. As you see, it's got 32 wheels, which equals 32 tyres, an awful lot of maintenance, so you always find that a lot of the inner tyres, of course, people forget to pump them up or to check them, so any tyre's going to go, it's always the inner tyre that goes. You get a flat tyre in the middle of nowhere, you haven't got the AA or the RAC to come and collect you, so therefore you've got your own tyre inflator, the compressor's running with the engine running, you've got enough air there, you then go around with your tyre inflator, do all your tyres, not a problem at all. You then see here the nameplate for the vehicle, tractor 6x4. It's obviously 6x4, there's no front wheel drive, so cross-country capability of this particular vehicle is hopeless. Just do not go off-road with these vehicles, it won't work. Driving on the road is a nightmare. I mean, besides the fact that the public sort of try and overtake you, undertake you, The gearing's so slow, it's so wide, the mirrors are so far out, it is a nightmare to drive, so I don't recommend it, not as a fun vehicle anyway.
Driving the Antar was a very challenging task indeed. Because it was a manual gearbox, you always had something to do all the time, and it kept you awake. You never got tired because you always would need to change up. Because the maximum speed was 28 miles per hour. Sometimes you had tight bends. It took 2 years to actually turn the steering wheel to get round various corners and junctions and hazards, where in today's Scammell Commander, you only, with it being powered steering, you can get round so easier. You're not even really driving the vehicle, it drives itself as such.
These commanders are the last to bear the legendary name of Scammell. It is difficult to kill a monster, and monster trucks are no exception. They operate in a secret world, lumbering through the night, hidden away from the public view. Many prime mover tractors are resurrected to lead new lives, some in showbiz. It is the showman's ingenuity that helps preserve the name of Scammell.
Scammell had an idea back in, I believe it was 37, 38, to put a dynamo onto a lorry. So they presented it to a man called John Oadley from up in the northeast, and he travelled it with a big wheel and a moon rocket. They found that was successful, so then Scammell then produced 18. Lots more showmen saw them, and being ingenious people decided that they could make them for maybe a quarter of that price. So Scammell never actually made any more than the 18 because the showmen were all busy making copies. You can see from looking at it, it's not a particularly big motor, but when you see them coming down the road with maybe two 20, 25-foot trailers on, and then a 25, 30-foot living wagon behind that with an all-up length of, what, 100 foot? And she just chugs along there, and she just enjoys being busy, I think. And, you know, you can hear that gardener chugging away as well, and it's really nice.
The great British company of Scammell is dead, but the name and the legend will live on.
And the greatest pleasure I get from it, I think, is when they pull the fare down at midnight, and then I finally get in the lorry at 12:01, have a 3.5-hour journey back at 27 miles an hour. You're all on your own, there's no traffic, and it's just a lovely feeling. It just slows you right down, and you can enjoy it. To somebody who hasn't driven one, they really wouldn't know what I was on about.
Well, that was the last in the series, but for a high-octane read, the Classic Trucks book is out now, priced at £16.99.
Looking over the wall of the hotel at us. Yeah.